super excited about today's episode because if you have been following me for a minute, you know that I'm always talking about self-care, but I'm also really careful to talk about self-care because I think self-care has got a bad rap lately, and we might feel a lot of pressure around self-care. So today I want to talk about actual, real, non-bullshit self-care, and I have the perfect guest to do just that. Kelly Newsome Georges is a mama, bonus mom, self-care educator, coach, and obsessed with empowering mothers. It's a perfect guest for us. She believes that a busy, chaotic motherhood is a perfect time to practice self-care. And she teaches moms care rituals that can help them feel ready for anything that life or their toddler throws at them. Kelly, I'm so excited to have you. I mean, we should have you in our pocket, really, with mail like that. I just want to carry you around.
Yes. It's I hear that from my clients a lot. In fact, I just created like a new coaching service to help them like send me messages all the time because there's so many times you just want to go back and forth with people, and that's why the work that you do is so important too, because there are lots of questions and lots of things that moms want to talk about.
Well, and a lot of I mean, we're jumping into something kind of different, but I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think that we design our packages to be in constant communication with our moms because you are the question that you answer the next day, something bad has already happened. You know what I mean? If you're
That's right. There's extra information.
100%. And you could just avoid that problem. And we have time limits. We're obviously not on around the clock, but it's like if your child isn't napping and you say, okay, forget it, let's worry about this the next day, something has happened that we could have avoided. And it's just so much easier and so much nicer for your client to be like, what do I do? Hold on. And you're literally in their pocket.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me about what you do. I'm dying to get into this because I feel like I said we need one of you everywhere for every mom.
Well, your intro was really, I mean, it was really great. It was really accurate. I am a self-care educator. I am a mom coach. I'm a mom of 2, a bonus mom of 3 young adults. Some of my clients call me a mom whisperer, which I really think is like the best compliment anybody could ever give me. But how it looks kind of day to day is that, mothers, especially new moms, are so busy taking care of all the things that they really, they rarely take time to take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I teach these care rituals that fit into that real life space. And it really helps moms get back to being the calm mom and the whole woman that they dream of being. And that's my goal, is to help them remember, like, there is calm, there is peace on the other side of this. And, there is kind of a redefining of who you are. But all of that can sound really good. But especially when you're tired, it also just sounds like theory. Yes. And so that's why I try to think of these very practical ways to talk about care, because like you, I am very anti the bubble bath self-care. I mean, I love a good sea salt bath. I will always say,
exactly.
But I am very, one of my missions really is to help women redefine what care is and to see what it really is and how it is so important to their lives, how it really is an essential life skill and not a treat.
Yes.
That's one of the things that is so misunderstood. We think self-care is, I get to treat myself. It's like, no. You get to do this because you exist.
Yes.
And so this is one of my biggest missions, is you exist and you get to do this for yourself.
We're a part of a similar, how we met, we're part of a similar coaching group. And one of, I've always thought this, but they have such a perfect word, is Rachel Rogers calls it sustenance. And it's
she does.
And I just love that because
she's a friend of mine, by the way.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
She's so wise in that sustenance. And I just I really connected with that word. And I am a former workaholic, busy, my whole life I've been told, oh, you have such a great work ethic. Oh, you work so hard.
Right.
Oh, you can do anything. And so then you really feed off of that. And I think it took me literally, I want to say like 2-3 good years to unravel. Like, we've all been brought up in this grind culture, grind it out, do everything that you possibly can to work as much as you can in every waking hour. And I feel like my mission is with my sleep work, and it sounds like your mission is like it does not have to be that way, and it's also not sustainable. You can't, there's an
Yeah.
end point. Your body has a certain amount of hours in the day it can be awake, you know what I mean, before you don't have anything left. And I feel like it's not a treat. This is not an option. It's not optional either.
Nope, it is an essential life skill.
Mhm.
And it's what's interesting about that is that it's probably the most important life skill you could ever have, and it's the one that we do not learn in school.
Mhm.
And so one of my goals is in adulthood, especially in new motherhood, because you have this new baby and you have this recreation of yourself, because we all have to kind of redefine who we are. There's no going back to exactly who we were before.
Mhm.
And it's one of the best times to look at this because, I mean, new motherhood can break you down. It can like really strip away the layers.
Yep.
It pulls out all the things that you thought you dealt with, like in therapy, and it really puts it out front and center. And it's one of the best times to learn how to take care of you, of this person who you are. So one of the pillars of care that I talk about, especially when it comes to sleep, is that chaos is the perfect place to practice.
Mhm.
And what's more chaotic than motherhood?
Yeah.
I can't think of anything. And I've done a lot of things
Yeah.
in my life. I've had a number of careers. I've had a lot of experiences. But motherhood is absolutely, can be very chaotic. It can feel really that way. And so when you realize that there's this alternative view, that you can reframe stress, and that it doesn't have to be, something that you have to get rid of and shun right away. And you think, oh, chaos is actually the perfect place for me to practice taking care of myself.
Mhm.
You don't have to believe the whole, oh, you'll never be able to take care of yourself again now that you're a mom. It's the perfect place. It's the perfect place for what actual care really is.
And can we
It's not the
just
perfect place for the cliche stuff.
yeah.
It's not for like going to, away for the weekend with the girlfriends, or going
Yes.
to the spa for 6 hours, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which, again, not knocking it. There's place for it.
Yeah.
But to think that that's the only thing that care is, and that
Yes.
that's what you have to do in order to feel the benefits of it,
Yes.
total bullshit.
And I also like, just to not to place too fine a point on it, but I feel like this every season that I record my podcast, there's like a theme, and I feel like the theme of this season so far has been these messages are bullshit. Like, oh, you'll never be the same again. You'll never sleep again. Oh, let me give you
Yeah.
some advice, and then it's like negative, negative, negative. I think that it's just wrong, and it's also like disempowering for the mother to feel that way, that
Yes.
oh, you had
Yeah.
these children. It's a rebirth. I think it's a, for me personally, it was like I did go to therapy. I had all my issues gone. I'm using air quotes if you're
Right.
listening.
Right.
I was fine, and then you have children, and everything is there. Everything is still there, and it's such an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity to really shine, and then also, if you're really lucky, you get to start showing your children how to care
That's right.
and teach them what you haven't been taught. I feel like it's such an opportunity, and we don't talk about that. We just talk about like, well, good luck. Motherhood is awful.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, it's really one of the best chances that we have to evolve into who we really want to be, into the life that you actually want to have. Of course, this isn't true all the time, but for the majority of moms that I talk to and that I work with, they had a baby to make life change.
Mhm.
That was kind of the point.
Mhm.
But then sometimes the change happens and it's like, oh, wait a minute, I don't want that stuff. I just want this other stuff over there. And really, in motherhood, it's one of the best places to realize that you have to have the contrast. That's why chaos is the perfect place to practice care or to practice being calm. Without the contrast, you really can't do the other thing. You have to be able to see both. So I think it's very important to remember that.
So, what are some of the things? So, your moms will come to you. What are some of the common things that you're seeing from your clients, or thoughts, or things that you're helping them with?
With regard to just how to take care of
Yeah,
themselves.
or just in general, like why would someone hire you, and what are they coming to you for in care in general?
Moms often come to me when they don't have time to take care of themselves. That's like the big thing. I don't have time to do this. A lot of moms will come to me, particularly for coaching work, if they feel like they are kind of in a space that feels quite lost, or like they just can't manage what's happening around, or they feel very overwhelmed, or they know that there's a direction that they want to go to, but they're things that are kind of getting in the way, that are often self-care related. So sometimes a mom won't even see that it's really self-care related, but she knows, okay, I want
Yeah.
to go in this direction in my life and I'm not quite getting there. And my kids are making it hard for me, but I love my kids, but I kind of want to be away from them. And so there's just this mix of feelings, and that can be really confusing when you're a mom, because you do love these little people, but you also have this other part of yourself that you want to explore and
Yeah.
you want to take care of. So I think that overwhelm's a big one, and feeling overwhelmed, feeling overscheduled is something that a lot of moms will talk to me about. And because I have this background of all of these different maternal things, I use this blend of really intuitive healing work and brain science, and then all the matrescence work that I do, and it kind of comes together in this nice, big soup. And we can just sort of just apply these theories and these practices to all the different areas that moms are concerned with. So how does it look in real life? If a mom comes to me, for example, like I just had a mom today, in fact, that I was talking to, and we were talking about the fact that she is exhausted all the time,
Yeah.
that she's just tired all the time. And she doesn't have a new baby. Her daughter is, I think, like in the 6 or 7 year old range. But she says, I'm napping all the time. And I don't understand why. And my husband doesn't understand why. And one of the things that we talked about was the fact that because she is in a very stressful job, and because she is now trying to figure out how to manage virtual school for her daughter, and because everybody's stuck in the house, that this is putting an extreme amount of stress on her nervous system. Right? So this is just an example.
Yeah.
And one of the things that a lot of us don't understand is when our nervous system is overloaded with stress, we think that either we're like in this nice rest and digest phase, or we're in fight or flight and we're moving around. But what a lot of people don't know is that if you can't fight or flee your stress, you'll kind of dip down into another layer that's the freeze state. And that's another state that's managed by your parasympathetic nervous system. And so if you're really tired all the time because you're stressed, and you find that you have to nap and your body just doesn't feel like it can keep going, that's often your nervous system putting you down into a freeze state, or what we would call a dorsal vagal state, for anybody familiar with polyvagal theory and brain science work. And it goes there to help you conserve energy. Like legit, your nervous system is like, things are really crazy, shit's hitting the fan, and we need you to take a nap.
Yeah.
And it becomes almost this overwhelming
Yeah.
sense of like, I can't do like I don't want to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Because your nervous system is trying to protect you.
Yes.
So in the care context, I would work with a mom and say, this is not your fault. This is not you doing something wrong. This is not that you're a hot mess, which I try to get away from, because we love to say I'm such a hot mess. And I like to say, but you can also do this.
Yeah.
And having her kind of reframe that and say, oh, my nervous system is really trying to protect me. My nervous system is trying to help me survive this.
Yeah.
And by the way, here are the 5 things that I can do to start to move back up that, it's an autonomic nervous system kind of ladder, and to start to feel a little bit better. These are ways that I can get a little bit more energy. These are ways that I can feel more safe and social, what we call safe and social.
Yeah.
These are ways that I can start to just find more joy in my day. So it's really giving moms hope and understanding that they have so much more power and control than they actually think, because nothing makes you feel less powerful and less in control when you have a tiny screaming baby who won't sleep.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh my God, I'm getting like buzzy when you're saying this stuff, because I feel like I hope to continue to share this message, because thankfully I had a physician who is wonderful and would be like, I think this may, like, I went through a whole host of stress symptoms. Like when I was teaching full time, I was just starting my business, and I thought I would just do my business on the side. And it was this thing that I loved to do. And then it became like a full-time thing. And I was also working full time, and I had 2 kids under 3, and I, my hair started to fall out, and I had a whole host.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
And I had a whole host of other like weird, strange symptoms. And I remember I was like seeing a doctor for all these things. And she was like, well, and she was so gentle. She's like, it could be that. It could be stress. It could be, stress and stress. And I was like, no, and I feel like when you're in that mind frame, it is very hard to believe that your physical symptoms, your tiredness, is related to your nervous system being like, I can't do this anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
it sneaks up on you. We think of these like, for me, I'm speaking completely personally here. Um, I would think of like having like a nervous breakdown is like going like "Ah!" and then it was just like,
Mm-hmm.
you shut down, but it creeps up slow. And I remember finally getting to an amazing woman speaking exactly your language. My therapist was amazing. Natasha Becker in Toronto, if you want to look her up, she's amazing. She has a wait list for days, but she's worth the wait. Anyway, so she talked to me a lot about this, and it really made a lot of sense to me about how I kept saying to her, I don't, this came on all of a sudden. This came on all of a sudden. And she goes, no, it
Mm-hmm.
didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about how you do life. This does not come on all
Right.
of a sudden. So she's like, take me
Right.
through your day. And then I did.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, so what do you do for yourself? Literally at the point I was seeing her, I was waking up at 6 o'clock, getting ready, working a full day, doing calls on the way to work, doing calls the moment I got in my car, solo parenting because my husband travels half the time, going to bed at 10. I would get 8 hours of sleep. That would be all I got. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like,
Mm-hmm.
every week I said this all I get, again, we have themes, right? I've said this, so I'm sorry if you're listening to the story again. It got to the point where she was like, what are you doing for self-care? And then she would talk to me about what
Mm-hmm.
self-care is, and I'd be like, yeah, I just haven't. And then it was like the fourth visit, and
Yeah.
she's like, you can't come back until you tell me what you're doing. And I was like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did it, and then the changes happen. And this is why it
Mm-hmm.
is like my fight song, right? Like, this is not, it's not an option. It's really not an option. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
that was a big
Yeah,
long
and a
spiel.
lot of women do wait until, I mean, that's how we're trained. We wait until the very last moment. We wait until we're literally on the verge of collapse,
Yeah.
or until we already have collapsed, and you find yourself, I found myself on the floor of my apartment
Yeah.
in New York City, just like laid out.
Mm-hmm.
We often find ourselves in those situations, and we wait and we wait and we wait because our culture perpetuates this
A
idea.
hundred
And it's
percent.
especially perpetuates the idea of mothers. It's like once you pop out a kiddo, it's that you all of a sudden you have to be superwoman and you have to do all of these things. And here's the extra jobs. And we don't really understand that it doesn't actually have to be that way because we're rewarded,
Yeah.
as you talked about, we're rewarded for staying up all night. We glorify the all-nighter. We are rewarded for, all the things that moms do to put their kids first. We're really rewarded for
Yes.
martyrdom. And
Yes.
this is one of the biggest things that I am so trying to reverse and change in my work is, this idea of, oh, she's such a great mother because she just puts everyone before herself.
Mm,
And that is not my idea of great motherhood.
no.
It's really, really not. And what I've seen, and even though I work mostly with moms from postpartum to pre-K,
Mhm.
because I have birth and postpartum specialty, and I tend to stick within the early motherhood realm and that those transitions that happen there. But I do have clients who have teenagers or whose kids have actually left and they're empty nesters. And some moms whose kids have left the nest
Mhm.
are still working with issues that were happening way before
Yeah.
because everything was about the child.
Yeah.
Everything was about the child. And now they're in this phase of rediscovering
Who
who
am
am
I?
what do I do to take care of myself actually? Like I've never even really thought of that because everything was always so focused on the kiddos. And what that does is, to go back to your earlier point, is that leads to children who then don't know what self-care is and who then don't
Yes.
have as a life skill and who then have the same, like, it's the same cycle.
Perpetuate.
And one of my biggest goals is to have every little girl, especially, and little boy, think that self-care is totally normal. And just to, my daughter will say like, Mom, I just need some self-care. I just need to go in the care corner. Or that she doesn't call it the care. I try to call it the care corner in my office, but she's like, enough of the self-care, Mom. I'm going to call it the calm corner. So she goes in the little calm corner. And my son does this too. He's 3 and she's 5. And to them, it's really normal. And I want it to be normal for kids to know that they can have all of these feelings. And I want it to be normal for them that they can take time independently away from other people and
Yeah.
that they need to kind of notice when they're going from what's sometimes called the green zone to the red
Yeah.
zone. And they can say, okay, this thing is coming up. It's all fine. It's all good. All feelings allowed.
Yeah.
That's what we say in my house. But I know that I also want to take it down a notch.
Yep.
I know that I need some time to myself. And so by doing that, I mean, modeling always is the best way that we can help our children.
Mhm.
And when we teach our children total sacrifice and martyrdom, we're really setting them up for that same pattern with their own kids. And not only with their own kids, but with their
Yep.
partners, with their colleagues, with society. So I say to any mom who wants to raise children who are not going to have partners that take advantage of them or bosses who take advantage of them, teach them how to restore themselves. Teach them that napping is really good,
Mhm.
that sleeping is really good,
Yes.
and that this contrast is really good.
Yes.
Because the truth is, the more productive you want to be and the more awake and energetic you want to be, you have to have the opposite.
Yes.
You just have to.
Yes.
It's literally called an emotional resilience account.
Yeah,
If there's nothing in that account, you can't withdraw anything else.
totally. There's two things I was listening and I was thinking, are you familiar with the book Why We Can't Sleep by Ada Calhoun?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this is like that was like a huge aha moment for me. I
Yeah.
am
Yeah.
just on the
Very
end of
good.
that, but basically for those who are listening or watching and you want to look at it, her thesis is children born generally between in the like 70s and 80s. We have, especially if you're a woman, you have a certain amount of pressure that other generations didn't face, in that
Mm-hmm.
our mothers didn't necessarily have all of the opportunities we did. So we feel an
Right.
enormous amount of responsibility to take them all. And that and also succeed and have money in the bank and make $1 million. And like, these are all this checklist, this success checklist that my husband doesn't have. And I'm like,
Mm-mm.
hey, what if I made more money than you? He's like, sweet. Like, that is his thought
Mm-hmm.
about it.
That's
And
right.
it's
Great.
great.
Let's
Awesome.
do it.
Um, and then I think of, so that's just a side read. I would love for anyone of my vintage to take a read of that, because I thought it was so, I think it explains a really common phenomenon of our modern parenting, or modern womanhood, essentially. And I loved the book. Then there's also Glennon Doyle, Untamed. Who hasn't read this?
Mm-hmm.
But I love, I'm going to butcher this quote, but, don't do things for your children just so you can do them, but you should be doing things that you want your kids to do later on. And this
Mm-hmm.
is sort of how I live my life. So sometimes I have to make hard decisions, like, okay, I'm going to go away. I mean, not lately, who's doing anything lately, but I'm going to go away for these 4 days because I have this
Mm-hmm.
thing and it sucks and I kind of feel bad, but I want them to do this one day? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do it. And guess what? We're all fine. Nothing bad
Yeah.
happens.
That's right. And that's one of the best things about taking care of yourself. I talked about, that I have these content pillars, and one of them is better care, better connection. When you feel good, everyone else does feel better. And this
Mhm.
is such a hard concept because, again, we're not taught this. We're taught
We
that we
don't
need to
believe it.
earn feeling good.
Yep.
We're
Exactly.
taught that we need to, we can't feel good unless we have literally put in the work, and then you can be happy, and then you can, and it's just not true.
Yeah.
It's just not true. Your care really has this positive correlation to how connected you are with everybody else. And
Yeah.
I always say, like, it's your children, it's your partner, it's your colleagues, it's your customers, it's your like barista, it's everybody gets
Yes.
to benefit
Yeah.
when you actually feel better.
Yeah.
And we all want this happiness, we want this peace, we want this kind of ideal,
Yeah.
but it's like, well, then do the little thing that makes you happier
Yeah.
and that makes you feel more peaceful, and that, like,
Yes.
you take these baby steps to get there.
Yes.
That's really important, and sleep's a really huge part of that. It's kind of it's the foundation for it.
It really, and my clients will, a lot of the work is like, yes, it's sleep work. And then a huge part of the work
Mm-hmm.
is validating why it's okay to feel the way that they're feeling, and validating why it's
Mm-hmm.
okay that they're sleeping, period. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
feel so bad. Like, is this for me? And when I say, okay, let's pretend it just is for you. Why is that so
Mm-hmm.
bad? And if
Mm-hmm.
you are not
It's a
well,
good question.
your child is not well. If you are suffering, we talk about attachment and attunement, and you think about all these like tired moms. And I do a program with a clinical psychologist, Tanya Kotler, and she talks about like how children attach to their parents, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
literally constantly looking at their eyes all day,
That's right.
and through
That's
a
right.
series of events. And if the most of those events you are looking resentful, tired, annoyed, angry, that may have bigger long term effects than saying, okay, we're going to do this thing and I'm going to sleep and you're going to sleep and then I'm going to be my best version of myself for you.
Yeah. And it also goes back to the nervous system that we were talking about
Yeah.
before. So, one of the premises of having a properly functioning autonomic nervous system is that you can actually help co regulate your child's nervous
Yes.
system. I mean, that's really what we're
Yes.
talking about, because this branch of the parasympathetic that helps you to feel safe and social with your kids and helps you rest and digest. It's this nerve that it's called the vagus nerve that it innervates. This ventral vagus nerve innervates the muscles of the
Yeah.
face. It innervates auditory apparatus and your vocal cords, and so all these tools, these physical tools that we use in social engagement, they come from having a regulated nervous system. And when you do feel regulated, when you have proper sleep, when you are feeling this in this safe and social state, then when you interact with your children, you do the things that children are asking you to do so that they feel safe.
Yes.
Because what you're doing, and it's at a level that's actually below perception. You're not even cognitively perceiving what's happening here. The brilliant scientist who I had the blind luck of having as my thesis advisor in college coined the term neuroception. And that means that our nervous systems are actually taking in this information from the environment all the time.
Yeah.
And that means that when my nervous system is regulated, my child is neurocepting. His nervous
Yes.
system is neurocepting what my nervous system is
Yes.
doing.
Yeah.
And that's why, if I were to come into the podcast and just talk like this, it would be like, whoa. Because I would have totally flat affect. I wouldn't be using any prosody in my voice. Like,
Yes.
these are all things that a
Yes.
properly tuned nervous system, tells people. It says, no, we're safe and we can engage. And
Yes.
that's exactly what happens with your kids too, So
Oh,
it's a really important point that it's not like we can just control our kids, because every mother knows you can't do that. Lots of things you can't control.
yeah.
But man, you can help them feel safer when you
Yeah.
feel kind of safe within
Yeah.
yourself. And those are the things that self-care and the proper rituals can help you feel.
I feel like what I'm going to do is every sleep plan I create, I'm also going to link directly to this episode of the podcast for every one of my clients, because I
Yeah.
am just shouting this to the rooftops. And a lot of this, I love that you're bringing the science behind what I feel like some of my clients, very type A, very career driven, will be like, okay, it feels a little woo woo for for you to just tell me, when
Totally.
I feel good, my baby feels good. Like, why? Well, this
Totally.
is why. And
Totally.
it's hard. This is the biggest takeaway from my whole thing with my mental health journey and my journey to wellness, was my therapist saying, your children feel you. And I remember her saying,
Oh, yes.
how do your children respond when you're anxious? And I said, and I believed, oh, I'm not anxious around them. She's like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
She's like,
Yeah.
you really
Yeah.
believe that they don't feel that? And she's like, I need you to know that they do. And this is why we're going to work to get better. And I was very mad at her for telling me that, because I was like, well, this just makes me more anxious. But it was a piece of learning I needed to change.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's important for a lot of moms to hear, because anxiety, particularly perinatal anxiety, is a very real thing. We hear a lot about perinatal depression, or postpartum depression
Yeah.
is kind of the old term for it, PPD, but we don't really hear as much about PPA, and you're starting to hear more about it now. And this is really important. These are very real experiences. I had these with my kids. Even as a professional in this field, I'm a trained birth doula, postpartum doula, I'm all these things, and I still have this. It's not necessarily preventable when you have a certain amount of stress, especially in your life. And it's important to kind of be on the lookout for them, and to know that they can have a really big effect in your life. And if you have the support around you that can help you get through those things, that's important. But when you're going through it, it's really hard to see.
Yeah, it is.
When you're in the middle of it, it's hard to see. And then when somebody points it out to you, it's very easy to feel guilty about it. Am I ruining my kids? Am I being a bad mom? And one of the things that I think it's really important to remember is that by the time that you recognize this, the fact that you're even recognizing it and you're being mindful about it is a great step for your kids.
Yeah.
That's a sign that you're a really great mom, is what that is to me. Because we're not going to get rid of, especially in this world, with everything that's going on, we're not going to get rid of depression and anxiety in motherhood. We're not going to get rid of sleep deprivation in motherhood. We're just not.
No.
But we can add like a little sugar to those lemons, so to speak.
Yes.
And part of that is really remembering even the mindfulness about what's happening here and the desire to change. The fact that I'm listening to this podcast, right,
Yes.
means that I'm actually a good mom. I'm actually doing something really good for my kids right
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
And that's a very important point, because you're right. The guilt situation is that's real.
Mm-hmm.
That's real.
Agree.
And one of the biggest ways to cure mom guilt, I say that self care is the cure for guilt, not the cause of
Yes.
it.
So
Because the
true.
more that you take care of yourself,
Yeah.
I mean, it really is, the more that you actually take
Yes.
real care of yourself, the stronger your relationship is with yourself. And that's all self care is building that relationship with who you are. Then you actually do end up, you feel less guilty.
Yeah.
You just do. It kind of starts to melt away, because you start to realize who you truly are and the things that you're giving to your kids and things that you're giving to the world around you. And it's really powerful stuff.
Okay. I feel like I could talk to you for 4 hours. I'm not kidding. I'm like, okay, temper,
This is such
temper.
fun stuff, right?
It's just, well, it is, and I feel like I try to keep this podcast down to the time of a crap nap. I feel like
Yeah.
this is a
Yeah.
great taster.
Yeah.
Kelly, where can people find you? Well, first of all, let's be clear. Kelly practices what she preaches. We're speaking from
Yes.
Stratford, Ontario, Canada, and she is calling in from Provence, France. So if you want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about practicing self care, Kelly moved herself to Provence because she's a genius. But
I did.
beyond being in
Well,
Provence,
it's a little more complicated than that, but yeah,
how can
I did.
people
I did end up moving here. Yes.
how can people find you?
People can find me at my website, ritualcare.com.
Great. And I'm going to put, you've sent me some links. I'm going to put all these links in the show
Mm-hmm.
notes for people to find you. This was such a great conversation. A huge, giant thank you. I'm going to send people your way. This is very exciting for me.
Good. I'm so glad. I want everyone who learns this to share it. I really believe like each one teach one. And the only way that we moms are going to start feeling better about taking care of ourselves is when we encourage each other to do it.
Yes. Amen. Thank you so much, Kelly. Have a good one.
Thank you. This was
Me
delightful.
too.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.